Hi, Solo Sue here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences that I noted on the Cunard Queen Mary 2 on my transatlantic and how they differ from sort of the mainstream lines that you see mostly in North America. Okay? So, the first difference is they take the formal dress code seriously. Carnival or Royal Caribbean, those I would rate as the most casual of the lines as far as dress code goes. And then as you sort of move into some of the more premium lines, they tend to take the dress code a little more seriously, but probably not to the extent that the Cunard line does. And on formal nights, the restriction is if you aren't going to participate in the dress code, you can't go to the bars. You can go up to the buffet to get food and eat there, but they don't want you in the public areas if you're not conforming to the dress code. And that's stated in their documentation on their website and everything. So that's something to keep in mind if you are one of those people who really likes sort of dressing up and looking, really sharp and having a nice meal. Then this might be the line for you. I would say during the rest of the cruise time, especially after 5, something like business attire would be probably the closest I would come to saying what their dress code is like. If you are wearing something that you would wear in corporate America, you'd probably be okay. But they're not going to be happy if you're wearing shorts and a tank top. That's pretty much not even during the day unless you happen to be at the pool. So yeah, I would caution you, if you want something that is more casual, look at a different cruise line. Now, one of the other differences was the dancing. They really like their sort of the ballroom style of dancing, not so much just, club dancing. So, and there's a lot of opportunities around the ship for it too. There are a number of dance classes and I think I saw like the Roomba, and I don't remember what other kinds there were, but there were a number of sort of instructional, this is how you do this kind of dance. And then there was just open free dance with an orchestra playing where people would go out there and do the ballroom style dancing. And it wasn't just formal nights by any means. It was during the day, it was whenever. And that was quite popular. So it was kind of nice to see, because it's a marked difference from some of the other lines. Certainly Americans frequently don't do that kind of dancing anymore, so maybe it's more popular. It was frequented by a range of I would say countries of origin, so it must be more popular elsewhere than it is in the United States anymore, because you rarely find someone who knows how to dance that way, including myself. Hopeless. They also, if you are a lady who is inclined to dance and don't have a partner, they actually have apparently gentlemen escorts for that kind of thing to go out and partner the ladies. So that's nice. The third difference I found was the activities. Now, this was a transatlantic, and so there are no port stops. And so the daily activities were really important, because you got to keep the passengers entertained in some fashion. There was always music around, but this is not the kind of ship like a Royal Caribbean where there's a lot of outdoor activities around the ship to do. There is no rock wall, there is no ropes course, there is none of that stuff. There is a pool, but that's about it. And a lot of the Atlantic crossing, it was kind of cold and rainy outside too. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to build that kind of thing out there when most of the time it's either going to be seas that are on the rough side, and we did have some rougher days, or it's going to be cold and rainy and nobody's going to want to go out there and use that sort of thing. So that's something to sort of keep in mind. They did have a lot of good activities though geared towards adults, absolutely. This was not sort of a family-geared ship where there's a lot of, enrichment lectures. There were people talking about their expertise in various topics. There is a planetarium on this ship, which is the only one at sea, and I am brokenhearted that I never made it to it. I can't believe I did that. And There is, lectures in the theater, lectures in the planetarium. There's smaller lectures in the smaller venues, and there's, that kind of activity. There are games, the kinds of cruise games that you expect as far as like trivia. There was a lot of trivia. But yeah, there's not a lot of kids programming because there's not a lot of kids. I think as a family, if I was going to do a transatlantic, I would not do it on Cunard, just because they don't have the kind of programming for children to keep them entertained. There were a handful of kids, I will say, on the sailing, but for the most part, it's not a kid kind of voyage. And let's see what else. The library is very popular. There's a bookstore on board as well as the library, and there were always people in the library when I went, and and it was big. It's a big library, and you look on other ships like the Royal Caribbeans, etc., and the libraries keep shrinking and are disappearing on some of those ships. And it's kind of a shame because I really always enjoyed having a quiet place to go and read. Usually you can find other places on the ship to do that. And it was just so nice to see that it was so popular. And then another thing that I found as a difference was that they have kettles in the room, British style kettles. It is a British cruise line, and so you do have the British style tea kettles. They also have fixings for tea and for coffee in the room. I always found that really nice because I would wake up in the morning and make myself some tea and just kind of do a sort of a leisurely intro to the day without having to jump in and immediately get presentable for public and go and get my coffee or tea or whatever. So it was nice to have that in the room. And I had that on P&O Iona as well, and really liked it. I really wish that the other lines would sort of take something like that up, because obviously it can be done in a safe way. And these tea kettles are they're pretty safe from what I can tell. They're very straightforward. There's an on-off button. Of course, another difference is that there is an on-off button on the power switch. The power outlet as well, which is a British thing that we don't do in America. And so it took a bit to figure out what was on and what was off, and what was how the kettle worked. And because of course I don't have a British kettle in my house, but yeah, it was very nice to have the ability to make my own coffee or tea in my room, both in the morning and in the evening. They would just come and refresh the supplies every day when they cleaned the room, and it was wonderful. Afternoon tea was quite a production on this ship. Apparently there's a tradition where they clap in the waiters. It's to a specific song, and you're clapping along to the beat of the song, and the waiters come in a procession with all the yummy things, and that was fun. I'd never seen that on another line before. Tea was very well attended. I was in the Queen's room, and that was where their formal, the full-on regalia was. And they also offered afternoon tea in some of the other venues. They offered the fixings for tea, and they had the sort of the scones and the sandwiches and such in the buffet, sort of on trays. They don't come and bring it to you, but they have it offered, so you can sort of go and make your own sort of afternoon tea in a much less formal way. And then I believe they had it in some, maybe in the pub as well, where they would do some kind of presentation. But it was nice because, of course, it was very popular in the Queen's room, and so I could see that they would need some kind of overspill for people who couldn't get into that venue, because while it's a good size venue, it's not as big, say, as the main dining room. One of the other differences about this was, of course, on the Queen Mary 2, for the transatlantic, you can have your pet come with you, your dog or your cat. I don't think they do exotics, but they do allow dogs and cats. It does book up very, very far in advance, so you need to make sure that if you've got something booked for a year in advance, that you immediately try and get one of those slots, because there's a very small number of kennels in the ship. Now, if you have your pet there, you can go into the kennel area, you can get your pet out, you can walk or I think maybe they get the pet out for you. I'm not sure. They don't let anyone else in there, so I don't know. But there's a little area that you can see on one of my videos where I walk around to the back of the ship, or is it the front? I don't know. Where there was a person sitting there with a couple of his dogs. And it's a gated off area. The whole area for the pets is gated off. But that's basically an exercise area, and he was sitting there and, hanging out with his dogs, and that was very nice. When I was embarking, I was waiting in the embarkation line, and I was not feeling very well. And I had a very heavy backpack, and I wound up feeling like I was going to pass out at one point and had to sort of sit. And there were people with dogs, and just being able to sit there and watch the dogs' antics while I was waiting in the embarkation was really nice, because I'm a dog person, and when I travel I really miss my girls. So that is, I think, the main differences in Cunard versus like the mainstream lines, the Royal Caribbean, the Carnival, the American lines anyway. And so if you are thinking of taking a cruise, be it a transatlantic or one of the other Cunard cruises, to sort of keep these things in mind. Make sure that this is a good fit for you and that you're really going to have a good time. So if you're thinking of taking a cruise on Cunard, whether it's a transatlantic or one of their other sailings, I am a travel agent, and I would be happy to book that or any other cruise with you. I work with people in North America or Canada. And you can contact me at the information in the description. Solo Sue signing off.